Well, hey there, this is Jerry, and I was getting started on another episode of What's Broke Today. And today we're back with our Ferguson tractor, our 1955 TO35 tractor. And what I was going to do is pull the cover off that has the PTO engagement lever on it so I could start the tractor up. And with the weight of my brush hog hanging on it, I want to raise it up, and then we'll inspect inside and see where the fluid is leaking out of, and then we can figure out what we think we'll need before we rip it apart. But I also want to be able to talk to the customer, because depending on what he's going to use the tractor for, it may not even matter, because no matter what we do, I have never seen one of these where you could lift an implement up, shut the tractor off, and it would stay up. They all creep back down. The big key is how quick they creep down. So let me move the camera around, see if I can get set up so you can watch what I'm doing. Okay, well, I've positioned the camera. I actually set it on the axle tube for the left rear tire, and using my phone to make sure I'm lined up good. And then this right here is our engagement for our power takeoff. So you got three positions. In the middle is neutral. You've always got to push the clutch in before you ever shift this. And if you shift it down on this tractor, the power takeoff shaft works like, say, when it's in gear and the tractor's moving. In neutral, of course, it doesn't turn. If you raise it up, it works as soon as you let the clutch out and runs off the engine, which most of the time, that's probably the best situation for this, unless you're, I don't know, if you're pulling a something making square bales of hay, you'd probably want to only run it when you're moving. But I haven't made square bales of hay in over 30 years, so I might be wrong on that. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the engine side first, and then I already pre-loosen these bolts because they're kind of tight. And of course, this rear bolt is a long bolt, and the footrest is on it. But as soon as you pull that bolt out, you can drop the footrest down out of the way, and and this has plenty of fluid in it because it's leaking out that hole. Let me go get a drain pan, but that's not a good sign. Which I don't know if you could see, but that fluid is I don't know, milky, so it's going to have to be changed regardless. So let me go get a rag to wipe my hand and get a drain pan. All right, I got my drain pan set under there, and I'm going to pop that loose, pull out the top bolt, and then when I pull out this bottom one, I'm going to pull this cover out of the way and then put that back in the hole. And then wipe off my shoe where I got that gear oil. It dripped down on my toes. As you can see, that fluid in there is nasty. So now what we'll do is I got the lift lever in all the way up position. I'm going to move my chair I'm sitting on, throw a piece of carpet down, and I'm going to try and shine up in there so you can see what's going on. Because let me move the camera. All right. Where these come up through that top of that cover, that cylinder is right underneath here, and it pushes backwards and then turns this rock shaft and lifts it up. So let me Now, as you can see, when I started the tractor up, that steady stream coming down was from that cylinder. And I have to go review the video to see if I actually had the camera in the right angle, so you'd actually see the cylinder and see the oil coming out the end of it. And if it didn't, I'll probably restart it and maybe get a bigger piece of carpet so I can lay down and get lower so you could see. But regardless, you could see it overflowing. Not to mention, you could see this fluid, that milky, it's had water in it. So we need new fluid, and I need to check, but I think, see how thin that is? I don't think this is supposed to have anything that thin in it. So, but I'm going to look up, make sure what kind of fluid's supposed to be in this. And then for now, I'm going to go ahead and put this cover back on. The big key is when we put it on, this little finger down here on the bottom, we got to make sure we get it locked into that slider, so we make sure we get the power takeoff shaft, so when we move the lever, it engages and disengages properly. We're back out here messing with the Ferguson tractor, and I'm down underneath because I had pulled the drain plugs to drain all the oil out, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a plug here in the rear. It's kind of almost straight below the PTO lever, and up here, right below the kind of the footrest is the front one. You do have to pull both of them because you can see there's kind of a high spot in the middle. So, and I don't know if you can see, but you can see where it's still got the milky looking stuff. Then I'm getting ready to put the plugs in, and so I can get ready to refill. But got to also be cautious because my drain pan, this big one's supposed to hold, I thought it was 7 gallons, and it is plumb full. So I got my oil sucker pulling stuff out. And you probably hard to see, but in the tube going up to it, looks like a cappuccino because it's sitting out here. The oil that's mixed with water is heavier, so it sinks to the bottom. So yeah, I got to get some of it because I can't do nothing with that pan as full as it is. And I think it may be over full because of the water that was in it. So, but I'm going to wipe off my drain plugs, which they look like this, and they have copper washers for gaskets and magnets on them. I'm going to finish wiping them off, put both of them back in, and then we'll get ready to refill. Okay, now the guy that owns the tractor went and got me the new oil, and I think it's Traveler's oil, which I think comes from Tractor Supply. And this is and it's supposed to use an SAE mineral oil. So it says SAE 90 Ford Tractor Transmission Fluid Mineral Gear Oil. So it's 90 weight oil, and then right up here on top, there's a big fill hole to put it in. So you can use a funnel or do like I am, just pour it in. And this is supposed to hold 8 gallons. But as you fill it, you need to pour in a couple gallons and then give it time to migrate on toward the rear. Because that fluid I drained out, I think it's thinner than 10W30. So yeah, I'm going to get all 4 jugs poured in, which will take a little bit because I'm only going to wait about 10 minutes in between jugs because I don't want to overfill the front section. And then we'll be able to fire. He brought me a battery as well, so then we'll be able to fire this up and take it for a test run. All right, well, another thing I was changing out on this tractor is it had an overrunning clutch installed on the power takeoff. And if you look real close, you can see how this one's kind of shaped like a screw. It's twisted so bad I couldn't get a shaft to slide up on it, so I went up to the farm store and got a new one. So I got exactly the same thing that I had. So it's installed the same. And how these go on is you take off one of the grease fittings that's on it. You can rotate the inside of this so you line up there's holes inside of here. So you line those up and then this pin goes through there. So let me get set up and let's put this on. All right, so what I brought was a grease gun, a hammer, my new power takeoff, grease fitting, and then the roll pin. I got a short 1/4 inch drive extension to use as a pin punch. And I'm going to look in here because I got this shaft locked. You engaged. I look in here and see the holes for the where this pin goes through. So I can turn this and rotate that around and line that up and push it in. Then our roll pin goes down through the center of this hole, which is kind of a tight fit. And we'll just have to move that in and out a little until it lines up with the hole in the shaft that is like the hole we got out here. And drive that down. And then just take my extension and finish driving that in. We got to drive it in far enough that the overrunning clutch part works. You see there where I can turn it? Okay. We put our grease fitting back in. And when you're taking this out, you pull out both grease fittings and drive the pin the rest of the way through. Or like this one was, that roll pin was wore out, so it almost fell out. So then we can just put a few pumps of grease in here. 2, 5. Turn it. Okay. We can PTO shaft. My quick release needs lubing. So, but regardless, oh my, I must have some rust in there because I don't remember when's the last time I had this installed on something. But it does go up on here farther than it did on the other one. Let me pull that off and look inside. Oh, I pushed my retainer the wrong way. Or my release. There we go. And once it's on far enough, that pin will slide over. So let me get set up, check some fluids, and then we're ready to go for a test run. Okay, well I got the camera. Magneted to the hood of the tractor. Let's see if she fires up. Oh. There we go. Now I'm going to lift the brush hog up. Disengage the PTO. And then Okay, and I hope you can see that. But now, one thing to notice, I just pushed the clutch in, and I'm about to hold the camera because I almost brush hogged my camera. But the purpose of that overrunning clutch is so it disengages here, so the momentum of the brush hog doesn't try and push the tractor. But on this Ferguson, I don't think it's really a big deal because this has a two-stage clutch. So I'm going to hold this over the back of my head. So I'm going to put the transmission in first. Then when I first let the clutch out, the power takeoff takes off. And I let it the rest of the way out. And the tractor starts moving. Alright, well now we're running along and everything seems to be working. Now on this Ferguson, another thing to remember is the hydraulic lift will work on these without the power takeoff shaft running. But if you do put the clutch in, they will fall down. And I don't know how well you could hear me while this thing was running, but this being the TO35 Ferguson tractor, does not necessarily mean you got to have one of those overrunning clutches. Because this, like I say, the power takeoff shaft, this has a two-stage clutch. So when you let it out, start letting it out, it engages PTO. Then when you let out the rest of the way, it engages the transmission drive. Hydraulics only work when the clutch is released. And it doesn't matter if you're in gear. You don't have to have the power takeoff in gear. It will lift. Now, the one thing to remember about these, especially if it's still original, you notice when I pushed the clutch in and shut it off, how it didn't take long for it to end up back on the ground. And that tells me that this probably still has the original cylinder and piston inside of the transmission case for the rock shaft that has rings kind of like piston rings. And they seal. They're just not a perfect seal, and the fluid will bypass. And enough years of up and down, it wears that bore and makes it larger, and then it goes down faster. If you ever take it apart and go to change that, which we may end up doing that for him if he wants to. I don't know how much money he wants to put in this at a time because, it's 70 years old. They need maintenance and, especially getting this one back up and getting it back up in where he could use it, because the guy that owns this has never actually used it. So he bought it this way. But if he wants to, we can change out, get a new cylinder, And the new style piston that uses a rubber O-ring with a leather backer that will seal better. I don't know that I've seen one of these that held perfectly. I mean, most of the time, you should always put the 3-point all the way down when you shut before you even shut the tractor off. This should be on the ground because inevitably it is going to slowly creep down. Because the system on these is not precise and they're old. So, but next thing I got to do is we're going to get the brush hog off here. Then probably take this inside, put it back in the barn because it's supposed to rain. I need to do something with the alternator belt and the alternator adjusting arm, and I'll show you that in a few. Okay, back with our Ferguson, and the last project to deal with is, if you can see, the adjuster for the alternator is in the right spot. I did loosen the bolt up, thinking I could push the alternator in and get the belt off, but it's right up against the governor almost, so I'm going to end up just taking the alternator completely off because I need to make it where I can adjust it. I think the best bet might be to modify the bottom bracket instead of worrying about modifying the top bracket, mainly because of the amount of work, because this goes behind the water pump pulley. So I'm going to, this is a GM 1-wire alternator, so I'm going to very carefully loosen up the wire. And I may have to go get something to tape that up because I can't let that touch anything. Grab that nut before I lose it or a cat comes over and decides to play with it. And then I think this bottom bolt is a 9/16. Yes. Oh boy, that is tight. Yeah, whoever put that on did not want it to come loose. Which I know it needs to be tight, but I don't know if it needed to be that tight. But regardless, I got it loose. Well, let's see if I can. No, I can't turn it. Thought I'd be able to turn that with my fingers, but there must be just enough crud in the threads to make that difficult. Let's pull that bolt out and I can twist the alternator and get the belt off. But then I can get this belt off because I need to run to the parts store and get a belt. Actually, I'll measure it just to make sure I don't got one, but it's the right length. But I don't think I do because you see where it's coming apart. And let's see. Well, that ends up right in the middle of that mounting bolt. My first thought was to weld a tab on there. I don't think that's going to work. So I guess I need to go get a belt and see how it fits, and then determine how I can modify this so at least I can adjust it and tighten it. Because, I mean, its pulley is, whoever put this on was a little rough on it. That lines up pretty good. I mean, it could move back a little. So let me do some thought, and then I'll come back and show you what I came up with. Okay, well, I went through my stash, and I had a 43-inch belt, which I was thinking I'd probably want one a little longer anyway. So pulled it out of the stash, and we'll put it on there, like so. And then reach down here and grab the bolt. goes on the adjuster, because I was ho-humming about how to do this, and thought, well, let me get this belt and see how it fits. That's probably the most important thing, because if it doesn't fit, it doesn't matter. Bolt. Goofy thing is this may actually work without me doing a modification. Okay, I can get that through there, and pick up what I knocked off on the floor, and start out, and I'll tighten this some. Okay, so we got that bolted going, and the big thing now is not a lot of tension on the belt, but can I pull it out, tighten it a little, and get it off the governor? Because when I took my earpiece out, or my earpiece fell out, and I forgot to stick it back in my ear. The with this longer belt, plus it's not worn, it should fit there really well. Let's see, why did I knock off this time? Oh, I don't know. I think I knocked the socket off. I did. So, yeah, so I'd wondered if they had done this well the way they did, so the alternator wouldn't hit that bracket, and that's it, because the fins hit. That's why they did that the way they did. Huh. So, I think I may go ahead and take that back off and lengthen the bottom on both sides, bring it out farther, which would rotate the alternator around. So when I pull it out, we're not as close to our fins. Because I take my light. Because it's not like we're hitting very bad, but we are hitting. And that arm is perfectly straight. And the only way to get it off is to take the fan off, which means you'd have to take the radiator clear out or get it out of the way. So I think what we'll do is I'll pull that bracket off, make a second ear back here that's behind the mounting bolt, and then move both out maybe, I'd say we don't need at the most an inch. And then that way we can bolt the alternator up. Then put the bracket on, then bolt the alternator up, and then we should be good to go. Yep, I think that sounds like the plan. Okay, well, I was sitting here looking at this and getting ready to rip everything apart. Now I got to looking that my fins just barely were clipping that. So just for the heck of it, I took my adjustable wrench and stuck on the fins and used my wrench, bent them down a little, and then proceeded to rotate that around. And yeah, only needed to move them about a 1/16 of an inch to get clearance. The only other thing I probably should do is start it up because I think the fins were bent a little because that's definitely not a GM alternator pulley. I think that's a pulley off the generator, and they put it on this alternator, and when they tightened it down, they crunched it up against that. So I think short of starting this thing up, I think I'm gonna call that good. Um, Let me move some tools because I got everything tight except for putting the charge wire back on. So I don't want it flopping around down there. So pull this back up here, and I may end up needing a new end because I don't feel like a very good solid connection, but it'll be okay for now while we're doing testing. So, because normally you should unhook the battery before you do stuff like that. So I'm going to put my tools over here out so they won't fall off, get scattered all over the floor. We'll make sure. Okay, move that down. I'll turn the fuel on. Give it a little bit of throttle. Hey, and I didn't hear nothing hitting. I think we're going to call that good. That we still got a little bit of oil leaking out of the bell housing, but I mean, it doesn't take much oil to make a hell of a mess. But it seemed like it's only leaking while it was after you shut it off. Because when I had it parked this on the concrete with the engine running, it dripped just, I mean, a spot or two. But then after I shut it off, then I got my puddle. Well, I think I'm going to call that good on our Ferguson tractor that we got the correct oil in the transmission and hydraulics. Of course, got an alternator belt on it and got it where it's working right. He brought me a battery. I put that in. The biggest thing that I am not 100% sure on, I think the next repair is going to be something called a clutch because it works, but don't feel right. I mean, it feels weak. Um, when you're in the low range, it takes right off, but when you're on the high range, the pedal is almost all the way out before it takes off and is going. I would really prefer it to be, I don't know, a little closer to I don't want it to be at the full release position really before it takes off good. But once it is engaged, it doesn't slip, and there is free play in it between the pedal and the where it would hit on the linkage back there, which is part of the where the where this arm here goes up. I think it's what it's hitting on. Yeah, where it's mounted back here. I got play in it here. So, and it does work. So, yeah, we're going to call that good. And, yeah, I need to take it home and use it some because the guy that owns it now hasn't used it. So, I think he's got a brush hog to put on it. He's got a blade. Um, but I think as long as he don't ride the clutch, he's going to get quite a bit of use. If he gets in the habit of keeping his foot sitting on that pedal or using the pedal to control his speed, he'll tear the clutch up in a hurry just like you would in a car. Yeah, but I think I'm gonna call this good. That I do appreciate you watching. That I always like those thumbs up for the likes. Appreciate all those comments. And anybody out there's not a subscriber, better join on in because no telling what else you'll see on What's Broke Today. Thank you.